Okay, I turned the video recorder on because this is useful. We can talk a few minutes on
Oh,
this.
okay.
All
I
right.
just I disappear, and then I was like, oh,
Right. Now, let's put it this way. While you're
I can't see
actually,
you now. I can't see you. Let me. All right.
now you can.
um. No. Oh, yeah. Okay.
Okay. All right. So
So, can I
let's
ask that
put it
again?
this way.
Did you
While
hear
you're
me?
actually, yes, I can hear you. While you're actually practicing, then having thoughts about immigrations and visas would be considered unwholesome thought. While you're practicing Buddha, having Buddha is a wholesome thought. Bu on the in breath and do on the out breath. That's anapanasati 100% in in the
But
right
any
context.
word is okay, right?
Pardon?
Any word that has some association with like a wholesome feeling or thought or whatever.
Right.
Mm.
May all on the in breath people be happy on the out breath would be wholesome in the right
Yes.
context. Wanting to
Yes.
be happy is not wholesome. Wanting
Mm.
to get something done is not wholesome, but being satisfied with bu on the in breath and do on the out breath is very wholesome. All of this is in the context of changing the mind from whatever it just scatters around your whole life. You've been thinking about 100,000 different things and to not feeling happy. If you can sit down and do boo on the in breath and do on the out breath and keep that going, you're in bliss. You're in heaven. That's the only thing you got
Yes.
going.
But but yes, you can. I can get very very calm, but it's always. Is it the kilesas that always at one particular moment pull you out of that?
That's the
Uh,
unwholesome thought. You can call it a kilesa. You can call it an asava. Okay?
so same as
Yes.
kilesa.
Well, they are
Yeah.
almost interchangeable, but the words themselves have particular Pali meanings. The word kilesa is like a bondage, like handcuffs for the
Yes.
mind, okay?
Yeah.
Or maybe a ball and chain that you carry around. That's a kilesa, being chained up, being imprisoned. There are 10 kilesa. The first one is ignorance about who you are. The second one is ignorance about the world in the sense of all the rites, rules, rituals, all of those kind of things. Oh, you should do Buddha. That's a kilesa. And you can tell that it's a kilesa because it starts with the word should or ought, setting up a set of rules about how things are supposed to be. And when you're trying to, let us say, conform to the right way of doing things, that's not wholesome because you're trying to conform rather than just forget about all the conforming and just enjoy Buddha. Oh,
Yeah.
wow,
Now, okay.
this is nice. Okay. That's another one. That would be a really good mantra for many people. Wow, on the in breath. Wow. Or this is nice would be on the in breath. Wow.
Okay.
All right.
Um.
And these would be called a mantra, but a mantra has to mean something that takes you into a good state. And a mantra would
Do
be
I
the
want to
same.
go into a good state? That's the question. Do I want to go into a good state?
The answer is the only other kind of state would be a bad state. Do you want to go
Well,
into a bad
okay.
state?
If
Or
if
perhaps instead of bad, you could say unwholesome or ordinary. So, yes, of course, you want to not only go into a good state, but keep the mind in a good state as
okay,
best you
I could say
can.
calm. Calm. If I say calm, you know, like nothing's happening, nothing's coming up. It's not
Right.
really good or bad. It's just very like raw. I wouldn't call that a good state. It's just like a very it things are not triggering anything inside of me. It's just so calm.
Isn't
It's
that
like
good?
bed, but
Isn't that
yeah,
good?
it's
Okay. So,
nice.
all
When I
right.
say good, I think of like pity and
I
forgive.
know that's the whole point is that language is difficult to convey the Dhamma because everybody has an individual, unique definition of every word they use. And so
Mm.
when they hear the word good, they've got a particular context of what that means. And of course, being a good state would be, I mean, you go to the store. Wouldn't you rather go to the store, go grocery shopping in a good state? Or how about going to the grocery store in a bad state and then see all the prices is too much and you're worried about the government and all kinds of stuff like that, rather than just going and getting what you, oh, this looks nice. We'll put that in the basket.
Okay. What is the balance then of having these, you could say like, I wouldn't say endless, but constant mm,
How about
drive of wholesome
how
thoughts
about
versus just empty,
unremitting? Use the word
unremitting,
unremitting. Keeps coming
unremitting.
back and coming back.
Okay. What balance do you have of doing that so much rather than just staying at that point of contact where you're not actually doing that constant wholesome, well,
Okay,
to
wait a
the effort
minute,
that you
wait a
need to do
minute.
it.
Let's look at the difference between process and results. And right now, what we're talking about process, and you just immediately now switch to result. Let's go
So
back
the
to process.
process of the doing of having these wholesome thoughts
Hmm.
over and over and over to get the mind to a
Out of
particular
the
state
unwholesome.
out of the
Yes,
unwholesome,
out of the unwholesome.
out of the unwholesome, right? So you're out of the unwholesome, and there's like a particular like satisfaction point where you feel like you don't need to push it as much as you were doing it. It's already the monkey or the elephant, so to say, is like pretty tied down to that pole or that wholesome thought or object or whatever.
Actually, from the very beginning, this is what we mean by diversion. So the monkey or the elephant is, in fact, tied down, but the monkey or the elephant is not satisfied and keeps jerking on the rope, right?
Yes. But when it sits down and it's like, okay, I give up. You beat me.
Okay,
You
I
basically
give
overcame your own hindrances. At that point, you just be like, okay, I'm just gonna chill here and experience this
right
raw.
now.
Okay. But but
How about
is
cool? You're using the word raw. This is the first time, so you might have heard the word raw from Martin.
I don't know where I heard it. Just like the yeah, cool. Okay, cool.
Okay, let's talk about cool as opposed to raw. All right. And the reason for it is because cool indicates no longer hot. You could almost go so far as to say that meat is better for humans in our culture cooked,
Hmm.
right? We don't want raw.
All right. Okay.
We
Okay.
want
Cool and
cooked.
chill. All
And
right.
now not only cooked, but now cooled down. For instance, have you ever killed an animal, cut it up with a knife, and eaten the raw meat?
I don't think so. As far as I
No,
remember.
no. Well, that's what raw means,
Okay. Right.
okay? Which
Okay.
is
So
very
cook.
primitive, kind of uncultured. And so, how about raw emotions?
Yes, things are just kind
Hot,
of appearing and disappearing.
Mm-hmm.
like that.
Okay. So let's not use the word raw as a place to go to. Let's use that the mind is no longer jerking you around, because in fact a lot of the rawness has to do with fear. Well, what about this? What about the visa? What about this? What about that? Oh no, what's this? Okay, so this is based in fear, and what we're looking for is to become content and satisfied, which means safe.
Okay, let me give you a just a an idea or a thought that I picked up from somewhere. But is it a good idea, for example, dealing with fear that's in the heart, to go into like somewhere that's like very triggering for that fear, to literally go to a place like why some of these monks go to caves or near dangerous wildlife, and dealing with the endless, I guess, fear in the heart, or doing something
All
in that
right.
case, because it seems
Okay.
like the kilesas are like very
The
latent, like
answer
they're there
is
ready to
in
attack,
certain
you know?
cases. Okay. That's not a yes or no question. It has to do with certain cases. All right. So if you can go in fear and trepidation into the graveyard at sunset and spend the night there, then in the morning you can come out of that saying there was no reason to be afraid. It was actually not dangerous. All right. Going into a cave and spending the night in the cave and getting bitten by a poisonous snake, and you crawl out of that cave almost ready to die, that's not going to help you become
Yeah,
fearless.
yeah. I mean, yeah. Like
All right.
not doing it stupidly, but like
Right,
exposing yourself a bit.
dealing with dangerous situations you have to be prepared for, so that you can conquer that situation, become successful, and then the fear will dissipate. But going into situations that are dangerous and getting clobbered is not going to help you become fearless.
Yeah. So
Or maybe you could say, going so far in a more advanced state, going into a dangerous situation, getting clobbered, but surviving. And now you can get more fearless. Now, I'd
so that's
rather use the
fearlessness.
word safe and secure as
Okay.
opposed
So
to fearless.
okay. Okay.
You have to develop this issue of being safe and secure. So, sitting on the sidewalk in meditation in a busy city is not safe. It's not secure. But going off someplace where there's nobody around. So, it's possible that the cave is being seen as a safe place because there's nobody around. That in fact, going to a cemetery could be a very safe place because there's nobody around except for the ghost in your mind.
And that's the ghost that comes up. That's like latent. And in each case or each different scenario, there's just
Okay.
latent
Right?
fear that's
Which you
like
could
sitting
call
there.
seeds. You could call those seeds, right?
Yeah. Ready
Okay,
to
this is back to the word kilesa,
yeah.
and that the kilesa would be like the seeds of discontent. And then the hindrance would be when those seeds come up in the form of thoughts.
Yes. Yeah. Which so like just in the simple case of staying with the breath, that pulling you away from or
You're
making you
not
more
growing those seeds. You're not growing those seeds. You're not thinking about the dangers of snakes in a cave, and you're not thinking about the dangers of ghosts in a cemetery.
but when they pop in, those are the kilesas in a way.
Then
Just when
they're
they,
the kilesa, then they're full blown hindrances.
yeah. Okay. So really, like it seems like you have to have this kind of sati. I guess you call it, like you would say, unremitting sati.
To
That,
keep remembering to not go into mental dangerous places. Like,
yeah.
for instance, when you're very peaceful and happy and calm, cool, you use the word raw when you're sitting at the
Oh,
what, and then thoughts of, oh, I've got to go do the visa. That pulls you out of that calm state that you got into when you were thinking Buddho, Buddho, Buddho. If you have
see.
Buddho, 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 everything is cool. But if you have Buddho, Buddho, visa, Buddho, immigration, Buddho, that that keeps you busy in the mind. So can you
Okay.
come out of that and into just Buddho, or wow, this is nice, or everything is okay? There's a lot of different ways. In fact, Om Namah Shivaya can be a good state. What is
Well,
that Om? You know the word Om, and then Nama in the name of Shiva, Shivaya. Om in the name of Shiva is a Hindu mantra. And people who are practicing that can get themselves into a calm state because they're doing Om Namah Shivaya, Om Namah Shivaya, instead of Om Namah Visa, Om Visa, Om
okay.
Immigration.
Uh, there is this. How about if calmness has this lingering boredom to it, even though it's calm
Right? But
and
that's in
cool?
fact not calm. Boredom, in fact, is the
Restless.
a better way of using the language of Buddhism would be that's restlessness. Boredom means that you're not rested, that you're wanting this moment to be different than it is. We're bored with this moment. It's not good enough yet.
Yeah. So,
And so you can
in
redouble. Oh, wait a minute. This is Buddha. This is not restless. This is not boredom. But restlessness and boredom as a hindrance comes from actually the kilesa of restlessness and boredom. That we're never trained to be satisfied. In fact, you could say that restlessness is an instinct, that anything could come up, anything could happen. You could be being chased by a rhinoceros, and so you got to
okay.
run. Okay, so in fact, running away or chasing anything in the mind would be that kilesa. It comes out of our DNA.
The thing, it's like when you're practicing like 9, 10 hours a day, that's the thing is like there's parts of the day where it's like, wow, like it's tranquil, it's pretty cool. And this
Hmm.
boredom, this under like invisible boredom just pops out nowhere, pulls you somewhere.
Right, and when you see that,
Yes,
you can say
that
something. In fact, I remember that very, very well at Watsu and Moke, that boredom would come, and I was thinking about leaving. But thinking about leaving, those are restless kind of thoughts.
yes.
And it eventually
Um,
dawned on me after a couple of weeks or more that, oh, I'm not practicing correctly. And so what you're saying is that you're doing that on in a day, in part of the day, you can be in that calm state. And then you can still be practicing, but now you're restless. Now you're bored. Now you want something new.
it's not that I want, it just comes up and it's sticky, even though I don't follow the train of it. It's just kind of there. It's like with my experience, but I'm not
Okay,
like going with it. I know
where is this boredom in the body? What part of the body does this boredom come up in?
I would say actually like I would say like on between the skull and the throat feeling.
Okay, so it's high as opposed to low. But
Yes,
in
definitely.
any case, you can actually breathe into it. As you breathe in, the sinuses that, in fact, of the size of a normal head, which is smaller than, or about the size of a soccer ball, smaller than a soccer ball, and the sinuses inside of the head, behind the eyes, in the temple, around the nostrils, down in this area of the body, is called the sinus cavity, and it's the size of an apple. All right? So start paying attention to that, because, in fact, if that's where you're experiencing the boredom, then breathe into it and clean it out. Use that as your example, or if it's in the throat, then imagine that the air is coming, not just imagine, but actually experience in the sense of sensation or feeling, the air coming into the throat and nourishing. That a part of the restlessness is kind of a mental concept of not getting nourished, that you need something. You need to run away. You need to go chase something. And so when that boredom comes up, uh, come back and change your point of reference into, oh, I've got everything I need. Oh, there's no place to go and nothing to do.
So when you said change your reference, you're saying change. Well, just remember, I was using Jesus, so both those same thing, but you mean change the reference from that mental repetition into another wholesome thought?
Right. Well, actually
That what you-
take it from the nose tip and expand it all the
Yeah,
way into the cavity,
yeah,
and then all the way into the cavity and all the way into the cavity. That, in fact, the word nose tip is a bad translation of the word cavity, or of the word cave. It's not the tip of the nose here, it's the breathing mechanism that's empty except for air itself. There's no
yeah.
bone, no muscle, but oftentimes there is, let us say, sinus residue, snot, boogers, phlegm, all of those kind of words will fill up that cavity. And now mentally you can say that instead of phlegm, it's boredom, restlessness, stopped up. You need for it to flow. All right. So
Yeah.
change. So one of the things you can do then is to clean out your sinuses, get breathing going really good, and then experience how satisfied and how nurturing breathing really is, right down to the throat. Now, there's something else. This may be going a bit too far, but behind the eye level, that where the throat, it's, you know that in the throat it comes in through the mouth, and then it makes a change and goes down into the body. But we start nose area, and then it makes a change. There's a curve. This is what we would call the throat, right? Behind that is the brain. And the particular part of the brain that's there at the back of the throat is called the amygdala. And the amygdala is the source of danger. Right? That's the part of the brain that experiences danger. So you're spot on when you talk about that you can feel it in the throat, your restlessness. So what you want to do is, while you're breathing, imagining and actually experiencing then the air itself is a calming, soothing, nurturing thing for that part of the brain, the amygdala, which is behind and below the sinuses. And so you can just, oh, I feel so good, and come back to that with maybe thoughts of, well, really, there's no place to go. Really, there's nothing to do. Right here, right now is really good enough. because restlessness and worry has the seed, or coming from the seed of things are dangerous. Things need to be done. Why am I wasting my time here at the Watt when I could go off making $100 an hour doing computer code? That thought. Are those kind of thoughts.
Yeah.
Like, well, why don't I go back and make friends with my dad? Or any of that kind of stuff. Anything that takes you out of the Watt, that has those worried, restless, boring kind of thoughts. You can say, I see that. Never mind. Let me come back and nourish the body. Let me come back and nourish the mind.
One question about what you just said in the last part. Is it because you haven't had like a truly, like the heart really doesn't truly understand that, it just keeps bringing up stuff, you know?
Out of the
And
DNA. And it will continue to come up for the rest of your life. All
yeah,
right. The question will be, when that stuff comes up, how do you have the skills to handle it wisely?
okay,
It's part of the DNA. It's part of being alive. It's as let us say, instinctually inbred as breathing is. You cannot survive without breathing. In the old days, when we were jungle bunnies, we had to be restless, on our toes, so to speak, ready to jump away from that snake at any second. When we're drinking water out of the pool, there could be a crocodile 2 inches from our nose. And so it's dangerous to go drink out of the that in fact there's a story in the Bible about how a group of army people finally, after a long journey, got to the river. And many of them put their faces right into the river water, while others would take their hand, scoop it, and drink out of the palm of their hand, and then get more water and scoop and out of their palm of the hand. And the general decided right then and there that the ones who would scoop the water out of their hand would be in his army, and those who went right after the water and put their face right into the river were acting dangerously because they wanted the water so badly, not knowing that that was a dangerous thing to do, because it's better to have a crocodile grab your arm than it is to grab your face. Okay?
okay.
All right. So, from that perspective, then, let's start dealing with that restlessness, which is that need to go get that water, and mollify it or adapt it so that you can do it gingerly.
Yeah,
Okay. And this is one of the ways.
the,
Okay. So, what are you going to say to yourself when that feeling of restlessness or boredom comes up? Can you have thoughts like, oh, I should go do something? Or are you going to have thoughts like, oh, I see that boredom come again?
I don't have, like, I noticed the boredom and the actual visceral feeling, that strong feeling in the body,
Mm-hmm.
but it's still there.
Okay.
Like it will just be there, and I
All right.
just say,
Are you
okay,
going to deal?
I'm just
So,
okay
yes,
with
I
it.
got that. Right. Are
But
you going
it's,
to be okay with it? That's the whole point.
yeah,
All
yeah.
right. Let us say that you can't deal with it very well, and you go back to Ireland, you take a job, and now you're doing whatever you are at that job, and that feeling comes back again, and you don't have the skill to deal with it.
Yeah, yeah.
That in fact here, by getting away from all of the activities of life, you begin to see that boredom there and recognize that it's always been there and it always will be. Are you going to
That's the
be able to
difficult part.
deal?
Is like I can see how literally my whole life was like not me, but
Driven
just
by
this
it.
feeling
Yeah,
pushing
you
me
were
around.
driven by that. It's a driver.
Yes, and if I guess the question is, at some point in practice, when you're really good at dealing with that feeling, what's it? Just curious, like what is it like to just wake up and not really care or have a feeling of I need to do
How about
something?
wake up and see it? That's what you're doing now. You're waking up and seeing that restlessness, that boredom, but you still don't like it. Now you can wake up and see it and not hate it anymore, not dislike it. You can say, oh, there it is again. Never mind.
Yeah,
Stop hating
yeah.
it. See, you come to me and you talk to me about restlessness and boredom as if you don't like it.
It's just a very strong feeling. It's
Yes,
hard not to
it's a
dislike
strong
it.
feeling and you don't like it.
It's hard to say I don't like it. I just talk about it like it's so strong.
Okay.
Like in this particular setting when you have
Is it
literally
then
not
the strength
no
that you don't like? You're not coming around to actually admitting that you don't like it. You're using words like strong as if you're trying to convince me without convincing yourself that you don't like it.
Okay, let me find the truth in this. Hold on. Make sure I can say truthfully I actually don't mind it or I dislike it. Um it's just when I'm practicing like here in this particular what since you have no phone, you have literally nothing, right? And this is just a life. There's nothing. There's nothing. There's not like a magazine or a book even.
All right. Can you
That's the
come to the point
interesting
and
thing.
can you come to the point of seeing that that's delightful?
Not yet,
It's
no. At
no, not.
times,
See, that's the whole point. You get bored and you don't like it. Rather than
yeah.
inviting that boredom, isn't boredom marvelous? We really do not have anything to do. There's no place to go. There's nothing dangerous here at all. Can you finally become restful?
Okay, I say I dislike it because I get defeated by it many times. I'll get defeated by it throughout the day. Like I'll just
Are you
restart.
using the word defeated?
Yes, defeated.
So you approach the boredom as a victim rather than as a lion.
I approach it as a lion, but that lion is also another lion, and we battle it out every day here. And we fight every day. We wake up, I say, wake up, all right, let's do this again, let's try again. Never mind, start again. I'll do that over and over every day.
All right. Can you
Um,
take the struggle out of it?
mm, it
Because you're struggling
sounds
with
like it's
something. You're struggling with this boredom. You're struggling with this innate restlessness. It's hard to describe,
mm,
but it comes from the position or the feeling or the indication that something's not right. And the fact is that everything is right, but that feeling that
yes.
things are not right
I
has come from our past. We were trained to be in the position that things are not right, they're not good enough. And it's an instinct. For hundreds of thousands of years, animals have had to deal with the jungle is dangerous. And the reality is that the wild is not dangerous, but wanting something is.
yeah, yeah, yes. The one thing is insanely habitual. I just wonder, especially when I see the monks, I wonder how long it takes someone to have that skill of
About a second, maybe a tenth of a second.
Okay, well, I'll say the skill developed.
When the skill is developed.
Say 10 years, 20 years.
No, you're thinking of it in the wrong context.
I know what you're saying, but I mean to be able to
I bet you have people in your family of advanced age that never do it. You're looking at it in the sense of how long did the monks take. Actually, once they develop the skills, it doesn't take long. So we need to practice developing the skill rather than wanting the feeling to go away. You need to develop the technique of dealing with boredom happily.
Yes, that skill to be actually completely, truly okay with whatever arises, so to say.
Whatever occurs, like boredom occurs.
It's more as like okay.
Occurs.
It's like I can feel okay. It's just a feeling. I can feel okay that it's coming up. I know it's there. It's going to be there. But it's the feeling. The feeling itself is pretty brutal when.
That means you don't like it. You use the word brutal again.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. You don't like it. It's not brutal. It's just you don't have the skills to deal with it. And one of the skills to develop is that it's okay, that it's not brutal, it's just there. You're using the word brutal as an adjective, and what you're actually describing is not it itself, it's your response to it. Like a guy comes home and he comes home to his wife and says, I had a day. Well, yeah, you spent the day. Big deal. But if he comes home and says, I had a bad day, now he's talking about how he feels, not about the day.
Yes. So I can say.
When you use the word brutal, you're talking about how you feel, not about the experience, the boredom. It's whether you liked it or not.
Okay. Okay, so
beware of how you feel and how it affects your language. And one of the ways of doing that is stop using adjectives. Because your adjectives describe it, and it does it subconsciously. We don't even know that our adjectives are describing how we feel. So when you say it's brutal, then you're talking about how you feel about it. You don't like it.
Yes. Because I couldn't say before fully, I could never say before, even in a retreat setting, like even at Deep Bhavan or any other retreat, Goenka retreat, that it's full on boredom as it is here, because there's really no point in my mind where I have to stop this. I could just live here.
Well, the Goenka retreat, people don't deal, a lot of people do deal with boredom. But one of the things that they don't deal with is because they have bells, they have a schedule.
Yes.
And
yes,
so now they put instead of concentrating or focusing on there is nothing, they focus on I don't like the schedule. The schedule is brutal.
Yeah, like okay, I don't know what word to use now. The seeds, the kilesas, the unwholesome thoughts, whatever word, they generally they come up with something, anything. And then if I can if I can be okay long enough with the boredom, enough that those thoughts don't seem to get their grasp on me and I can kind of overcome them. I can do that, but periodically, not like all day. It's like part of the day. It's almost like the skill of my sati. It just hasn't gotten that point of being able to be able to unremittingly get through it all day long, because it seems when those unwholesome thoughts pull me away or pull me in aversion to the boredom, distraction to the boredom, it's so habitual. It's like I literally don't realize it until like 30 seconds or a minute or even 2 minutes,
Precisely.
3 minutes later. I'm like, what?
Precisely so. So
Yes.
this is what you have to begin to understand is that you have not yet learned to control your feelings. And so when these things happen, you naturally, because of old habits and because of DNA and instincts, you come up with not liking it, but you're not aware of it. And so then you'll use words like brutal to describe it and not even recognize that when you say the word brutal, you're talking about, I don't like it. That's why I give it that adjective. So begin to
Yeah,
wake up to how you
true.
feel. Okay?
Yeah.
And you're using the word boredom, and you're using the word boredom is brutal, where in fact nothing is going on and you don't like that because you want something to be going on. It's really hard for people to understand that restlessness is the words is used in the suttas, and what they're talking about is boredom. Okay? So let us say that you have, I'm trying to find a good analogy. You have a blob, let us say jello, not in a bowl, just sitting on the counter. And the counter, the table, the house is not moving and jiggling, but the jello is wiggling and moving. Why? Because it's picking up the very, very subtle vibrations. The table's not really moving that much, but the jello is. All right. So here you are in the what and the counter, and nothing much is happening. And yet the mind is still wiggling. But now you can see it. You can see the wiggling, and you don't like it. That in fact, not liking it keeps the jiggling going. And when you start saying, it's okay that I'm bored, that's all right. I see, in fact, I'm happy. I'm glad that I can see the boredom. That's why I'm actually in the what, is to give myself a peaceful environment so I can see how unpeaceful the mind is. But when we are stuck in it, we don't like that jiggling, and we call it boredom. And the Buddha calls the word restless. And I'm using the word jiggling, vibrating. Okay? Why do people go to discos and balls and dance? Why do people dance? Why? I mean, the floor, the dance floor, is not moving. It's not jiggling. But the body is. Why? Because we've got all this restless energy inside. And so people go ignorantly to the ballroom or to the disco and dance it. And here you are in the what, and you're seeing that jiggling inside. And under normal circumstances, you might go to the disco.
Okay,
Instead
I have a
of, now
question.
you've got no place to go, but you're still seeing that jiggling and you're calling it brutal because you don't like it. Instead of saying, aha, I see that
Yeah.
jiggling inside, I see that jiggling mind,
Yeah.
and be happy that
Um,
it's there, that it's part of being alive.
in 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 the moments of practice in the day when if I can stick it enough with something that the boredom seems to kind of fall away, so to say, or the mind gets like concentrated or one pointed or something like that, and the
Mm-hmm.
tranquility comes in. Now, up until that moment, the practice is pretty solid and pretty correct. But there's always this point where, even though things have become tranquil, there's always this point where like it's like the sense of something's looming, like there's the looming uh it's like you know that the sun is gonna come back up again, and the sun is the boredom. Like you know, like you've gotten everything cool. It's nighttime now. You're chilling, but you know the sun is gonna come up again. Like you know it. And is
Do
it
you
for? I
not
mean, the
like
question
the
is kind
sun
of for you.
coming back up? Here's the question, though. The sun's going to come back up, but you're sounding like you don't like the fact that the sun's going to be coming back up.
Yes. So the practice was that got me to that point was being okay with that happening. That got me
Right.
to that cool state. But I guess I mean my question was is that like is I mean in your practice or whatever, I know like is it is it um is it that you got so skillful at doing that that it almost like you could just stay in nighttime all the time, like it seemed like you could just chill out at nighttime all the time, you know,
No,
even
it's
though
being able to chill out even though there's daytime because there is those cycles. That's why I
oh,
say sometimes you feel like a nut and sometimes you don't. In fact, in a way, you've got things backwards in the sense that daylight, when the sun comes up, you can see all around you and you can see that it's safe. But when the sun goes down, it gets dangerous. And look what people do in every society because we do, as human beings, we don't like the dark. We would have oil, we would have candles, we would have safe housing, we would have now modern electricity and bright lights because we don't like the dark because we can't see and therefore things are more dangerous. This is exactly what happens with ghosts in the cemetery at night. Is
okay,
people
but
feel danger.
yes, but I guess if you can't see anything, right? Let's say just in that analogy, like it's nighttime and it's just mainly tranquility. Everything it just seems nothing is coming up anymore. Like that background sense of something, that background boredom is gone, and you're at that not raw. What was the word that you used? Just experiencing life,
Okay,
and there's no background.
it doesn't matter which side of the analogy that you want to go with. I'm not fighting with you over whether you dislike or like bright or dark.
No, no, I just
I'm
meant
talking
like
about the
okay,
fact that when things change to the other, we don't like it.
yeah. But I
That's
just
why
meant
people
if
go in the
everything,
daytime, they make candles or they go buy candles because they don't like the dark. But
yes,
then you
but
can say that they also go and get oil to oil the skin or put sunscreen on, or maybe we wear clothing because we don't like the hot sun's rays on the skin. The point is that we act and do things ignorantly because we don't like them. And it's good for you to become aware of whether you like and don't like things. And the topic that we're talking about is boredom, and you don't like it. So go find the good. Look on the bright side of boredom. Look on the bright side of life. What's the bright side of boredom? Tell me. I'm listening. Come on, tell me, what's the bright side of boredom? What's the better part of boredom?
The better part of boredom? Satisfaction, I guess.
All right, I'll buy that. That in fact, boredom is being dissatisfied, isn't it?
I would say that the coolness when you're really fine with just sitting or
But
just.
but coolness and just sitting is not boredom. Boredom is when you are just sitting and cool out, and then all of a sudden you don't like it. You want something to change.
Yeah.
And the good part of the boredom is that, wow, it only comes up when there is nothing happening. And so you can be really happy. Oh, I'm so glad that I'm bored, because that really means that I've got no place to go and nothing to do. Let me go back
Yeah.
into enjoying no place to go and nothing to do. Because boredom means I want something to do. I want. It's desire.
What would you say is playing? You know, like playing, like to be playful. What regards is that coming from desire or not? You know, I don't know if that's
Well,
if
actually,
that's
what
a
I'm
good way to
inviting
word
you
it.
to do, look on the bright side of boredom, look on the good side of boredom, is actually being able to play with boredom rather than calling it brutal because you don't like it.
Yeah.
Become playful with it. Take a deep breath. Clean out the sinuses. Let that air flow down the throat. Say, aha, I am not in a state of hatred for boredom. Because boredom is, in fact, a state of not liking. Let me give you this example. The kids are in the back seat of the car on a long car journey. And the kids will say, I'm bored. And mom's sitting in the passenger seat. What does she do when the kids say, I'm bored? She plays a game with them. She gives them an activity. She takes their mind away from the fact that they've got nothing to do. Because the inside of the back seat of the car is boring. But look out the window. Count how many red cars you can see. Start paying attention to what's going on around you.
Okay. Let me just quickly throw this in. I can't tell. I can't tell if sometimes I have these thoughts or feelings about like unclosed doors of the past, especially in regards to my family. Yeah, I would say I'd say like 90% of it's family, 10% immigration visa, but 90% family. Now I don't know if there's some part of me that doesn't fully like it just seems like there's something still to do there. And so that stuff comes up. And I know in the moment when I what I'm
Don't you
practicing is that,
remember that I just said that not long
yeah.
ago in our conversation here when I was mentioning the point of, oh, I should go back and straighten things out with my dad. All right.
Yeah.
Those are the kind of thoughts that we're talking about. Yes, those things come up, and you can call that restless or boredom, and you can call it brutal.
Yes. But I
And what
guess,
you can do instead is play with it. Like, for instance, say, oh, dad's okay. Let me be
yeah, but
okay now, too. He's all right.
what, there must be some balance or some kind of action at some point,
Actually,
you know? I don't
yes,
know if that,
yes, there is. And that is beginning to recognize and see how you feel about things. that you don't like it. You called it boredom. It's a state of you don't like it. Can you see that? That's the job, that's the right effort of investigating so that you can see that you don't like it. And then you have a choice about, and we've been talking about what kind of choices that you can have to deal with it once you recognize that you don't like it, once you see that you don't like it.
Yeah.
You didn't come and say, yippee, I feel bored. You called it brutal.
Yeah.
And you still haven't come to the point of recognizing that you don't like it.
Yeah,
And you're also coming to, okay. And so now you do have now the opportunity, when you recognize that you don't like it, you have choices. And now you're asking me, well, what do I do? What are my choices? The answer is when you can see those times, those moments when you're in a state of not liking it, you know what to do to make a change. Play with it.
Okay, this is another quick kind of side thing about that is, did you ever feel like this is weird maybe, but did you ever feel like you were gonna die in your practice? Like you're just in the present moment and like it's like you're giving up the past, sort of in a way, like you're giving up the attachment that kind of is you in a way, when it feels like you're gonna
Exactly.
die.
This is what anatta is all about. Is that you're coming to the point of recognizing, yes, you do have to die. Your past has to die. Who you are in terms of your past needs to die. And the fear comes up. Oh, poor me.
Yes, that fear comes up regularly
and
now with that
don't
feeling.
Like it. And you don't like it.
Okay.
And because you don't like it, you call it dying.
It's like like when I first said that sense of unclosed door with my family, it's like
you're afraid
it's
to close
scary
the door.
that I could let that go.
Yes, exactly.
I could let my family go, but that's the problem. Is like there's this battle between, like, I could let that feeling, this feeling go of my family feeling, but there's this unclosed door feeling that kind of comes up. It's like you can't do that. Like you haven't worked things out with your parents. You haven't worked things out with your brother. You know, like that comes up and comes.
Well, here's how to play with that. When those kind of thoughts come up, you can say, wow, let me develop the skills that I need so that someday when I'm really skillful, I can go back and deal with that old stuff. But right now, you can't deal with it even when you're sitting in the Wat. How could you possibly go and deal with it in Ireland? Because you don't have the skills to deal with it when it comes up now. And so if you go back to Ireland and you want to straighten things out with your dad, he's just going to say what he always says, and then you're all freaked out again because you don't have the skills to deal with him in Ireland, because you don't have the skills to deal with him here at the Wat. So tell yourself, now is not the time to deal with Dad. Let me deal with my thoughts and my feelings instead, so that I become really skillful with my thoughts and my feelings. And let that happen in the future. The future will take care of itself. That, okay, you can close that door. And you can even lock it. But it'll open again sometime. That's up to you. And that and those thoughts are part of the restlessness, is part of the boredom. that you really do have nothing to think about, and so you'll start thinking about the past. Other people, when they're sitting bored in the what, they'll think about the future. And then they'll freak themselves out over the future, or freak themselves out over the past, which the freak out means they don't like it. So can you see your feelings of not liking? And then you can deal with them happily. But so long as you're using words like brutal,
Yeah.
that means that you're not aware of the fact that you don't like it. You don't like thinking about your dad. You don't like thinking about what happened in Ireland before. And so now you're having to think, oh, I should go straighten out the past. I should go fix it, and then I'll be happy. But if you do go try to fix it, boy, will you be unhappy for sure.
I don't know. I think it's more of like recognizing how parents get old. I guess it's like what you said a long time ago about like, okay, well, avoiding basically if I can imagine like if my parents died or something, then I'd be like, oh no, the guilt probably would come up about
you don't like guilt. You don't want to feel guilty.
Yeah.
And so you want to go straighten things out so that you don't feel bad. And what I'm suggesting is learn to deal with your feelings now. So that whatever happens, your dad dies and you feel guilty, but that's okay. That in fact, maybe you've heard me say a time or two that I'm really glad my mom's dead. Because if she was still alive, she'd be over 100 and she would really be in bad shape and I'd feel guilty about it. But now that she's dead, I'm free. But I felt free before she died. So can you feel free about your dad? Maybe then you can deal with him. But you got to be free from those bad feelings about the past. This is one of the reasons why in the Bible Jesus says, let the dead bury the dead. Let your past be the past. Let it be dead and buried. You can go exhume the body later when you've got the right backhoe. But going and digging up a grave to exhume with a teaspoon, not so easy task.
I could tell you, it's pretty annoying to have so many questions pop up during practice, or not during, but
what's annoying is you don't like so many questions popping up from the past. It's annoying, you said. Did you hear your word ignore? Annoying?
Okay, let me finish. I'll finish, and then I'll... Annoying, yeah. But I meant it's annoying to have many questions come up because of practice, and then having not much time to go over it or talk to it about people because of my practice has given kind of all kinds of new questions or new kind of something I want to further look at or think about or ask someone who's probably looked or been at that terrain a bit more than myself to ask.
So that ultimately you'll stop hating things and not liking them. You want to get yourself into a state of liking, and that's why you have all of the, well, if I go do that, I'll feel good. If I go straighten out to my dad, I'll be happy, and all of that. Okay? And so we're actually now focusing on the real issue. The real issue is that shit happens and you don't like it. And you're focusing on shit happens. And I'm saying, no, don't focus on that shit happens. Focus on the fact that you don't like it. When these thoughts come up and you don't like it. Call it boredom. Call it restlessness. Then you call it brutal. Because you don't like it.
Okay, yeah.
And you're trying to find a way so that you feel comfortable and satisfied by going and doing, going and asking questions to the monks, going back to Ireland and straightening it out with your dad, dealing with your boredom. All of that kind of stuff is just merely the point is that you're in a state of not liking. And so
It's
when
hard
you're
to like
sitting,
this, but I'm not going to use another adjective.
it's hard to not like, okay, it's hard to start liking stuff. This is your skill development. This is your right effort. Your right effort is to stop not liking and be okay with it.
I have, is it unwholesome, like, to do something that seems like it has wholesome results for people other than yourself, but the reason you approach it, like for example, here in the walk, if I have absolutely no laptop, no phone, no anything, and I'm practicing like that, and then if let's say I go to do something that is wholesome, but I approach it to the point because I was bored, I went to do it. Is that for me like unwholesome?
Well,
Does that make sense?
you're just,
Does that make
yes, it does, but you're missing the point. You're missing the point in the sense of that you're bored and so you go do something wholesome. You divert yourself from the unwholesome, but you haven't actually come to the point of recognizing that you're doing something now that's wholesome to avoid your not liking being bored. It's
so? For me, it's
always back to
unwholesome.
the issue of doing things because we're driven by our emotions, our feelings of liking and not liking.
Mm. I was reading Ajahn Mun a little bit about how he approached about his approach was kind of radical, I could say. Like I don't know if you know much about Ajahn Mun.
I know enough. Go ahead. I'm listening.
Yeah, that
What
he
was his
had this
radical?
like radical, yeah, like this extremely like I don't know the word, like I could describe that his character from what I've just the little bit I've read about him. That he was like really um driven, pretty strong, like pretty um focused on the on his path, you know? Like he seemed to not falter or waver very much. And from reading what he did to get to that point of I don't know, like you could say like coming to the true Dhamma or whatever, how I've read about it anyway. About like having a completely pure chitta or completely pure heart. The
Okay.
amount of stuff he did and went through to get to that point
All right.
seems
Stop. Can you
pretty
stop a
far
second?
out.
You talked about a pure heart, which means then, in the reference of what we're talking about, his heart was not in a state of not liking.
Yeah,
And
like he
when you can
completely
deal with
overcame.
your not liking, then your heart will be pure. And I'm trying to
Yeah.
give you the easy way out. The easy way out is to see that you don't like stuff, and then you can deal with it easily because you can see that you don't like the boredom. You can see that you don't like some of the stuff in your past and you want to go fix it. And that keeps you restless. Then you don't like it. You're in a state of not liking.
Wow, okay. The not liking is very subtle, I realized in this talk. It's super subtle, actually.
What it means is it's subconscious to you. Or
Yeah,
another way of saying it, it means that you're blind to it.
yeah,
Or another
that's
way is that you're ignorant of it. And when you begin to see it, you call it subtle.
yes, that's pretty much
Okay. When you
that's pretty
really
true.
can see that you are in a state of not liking, you can do something about it.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. So when you were younger and your dad was in a state of not liking, he would yell at you. He would use words like brutal, or maybe he would be brutal, which means he put you in a state of not liking because he was in a state of not liking. But if he could recognize that, oh, he's in a state of not liking, then he would have a choice about how he would deal with you. He would stop yelling. And so it's not a matter of that it's subtle, it's a matter of that you've been blind to it for so many years. That things happen and you don't like it. So that pure heart that we're talking about is getting that resolved, which means you have to see the not liking, and then we can do something about it. What do? Well, the kind of language that there will be is, aha, I'm glad I see that I don't like it. But really, in reality, I can see that everything's okay right now.
That's the thing. When I was kind of surprised about the extents and the lengths that this person went through to come to that point of deliverance, I guess, in terms of path. And
Yeah. So
it's
don't take that route. Take the easy way out.
is there an easy way out? I mean,
Yeah,
it's
there's an easy way out, and begin to see over and over again, not boredom, but oh, I don't like it.
okay.
It's not the
Mm.
problem with the guilt, is you don't like feeling guilty. You don't like it. You're in a state of not liking. Now that you know that you're in a state of not liking, you can give yourself the kind of thoughts that will appease that not liking. Like, oh, everything really is okay. Yeah, let me sit here and have a pure heart. Not clouded, not cluttered with not liking. That even when we're in a state of wanting something, like wanting a material object, that's really another way of expressing you don't like being without it. So liking and not liking are actually the same thing, just depending upon the perspective that we take. So if I want it, that
Mm.
means that I want it to relieve my desire to have it, because desire is not, I don't like it.
Yeah.
Right? I don't like being without my heart's desire. Rather than, why don't I be in a pure heart, which means I don't have to like it, which means I don't have to dislike being without it. So liking and disliking are basically the same thing. And the real issue is we're ignorant of it. This is the cause of dukkha. This is the second noble truth. You wake up to the liking and not liking. And then you can choose what way you're going to feel.
Seems like that's
liking
all
it the
there
way
is.
things are. Huh?
It seems like that's all there is. Like,
That's all there is to it. Exactly. That's why it's
but
called the Four Noble Truths. It's noble to wake up to the ignorance of your not liking. And then you have a choice. And you can take the right effort to come back into that pure heart state. Really is easy.
it's I don't want to complain again about the defilements or whatever, but they're tricky. They're very, very tricky. But I think I what you're saying is sinking in more and more. It's yeah. Oh, by the way, just another side on the side of that is that where are all of these words coming out of? All of these, because it seems like things up here in Udon up in Isan are
Isarn? You're using the
Isan,
word
yeah.
Isarn?
Isan, I don't know what's this region of Thailand called. Udon
Well,
Thani, Lao.
right. Udon Thani and Non Kai, all the way
Mhm.
down to Kon Ken, that whole area is a valley that's on the other side of the river, and on the far side of the river, on the northern side, on the eastern side, is Laos, which is mountain. And then on this side of the river, it's a plain. And that area of northeast Thailand is called Isarn, and they
Mhm.
have their own language. But the language is very, very close to what's called Central Thai, but there are some remarkable differences.
Well, some words in terms of like Buddhist words, I never seen much of, like acharya, for example.
Acharya, yes, that is actually the Pali word for the word achan.
So where does the word achan come out of?
It comes out of the word acharya.
What? Wait, so acharya comes from ajan, and ajan comes
No,
from acharya?
no, acharya is the actual Pali, and the word achan is a Thai word, both in
Oh,
Isarn. Okay, the common word,
and
like the word wat, is a Thai word or an Isan word for the Pali word vihar.
yeah, and they describe different kinds of samadhi in different ways. Than even when I talked to one of the ajahns about jhanas and how that is, it just different translation of jhana? Apparently, no. Apparently, the practice they do up here results in different kinds of samadhi. That's not the jhanas from how the Buddha described those jhanas,
Okay,
or how
but
the
the
Buddha
word,
describes those jhanas. So it's coming
the
from something
important,
somewhere.
okay, so the word samadhi actually has the meaning or the connotation of being whole, being,
Samadhi, yeah.
yeah, samadhi. And
But they,
samadhi is the same word, just being pronounced differently. That we use the word samadhi in English, but in Thai it's called samadhi. Just like the word computer in English is said computer in Thai. Just like the town Chaya, nobody knows that in Thailand because they pronounce it as Chaya. So samadhi. And what it actually means is unification, wholeness, and the example would be the ridgepole of a tent. That one pole, and then the rest of the tent is spread out with wires to the ground, but you have that ridge center pole, and that's what holds the whole thing up. And when the mind is in a state of samadhi, that means that you're not boo, immigration, boo, visa, daddy, that's scattered. A samadhi mind is boo, do, boo, do, boo, do. Right?
Yeah.
So the
And then,
samadhi mind is paying attention to reality, and the ordinary distorted mind is making stuff up.
okay.
Okay, so the samadhi mind is in reality and talks about noble, talks about real. But the disorganized mind talks about I want, I don't like. And we use words like brutal. But a samadhi mind doesn't use words like brutal. It uses words like everything is together, everything's okay, everything is organized. And so a samadhi mind means that the mind is peaceful, satisfied with the way that it is, not scattered. So if we tell a lie, like using the word brutal, or boredom, boredom is just boredom. But when you call it brutal, you're adding, you're not liking to it. You're telling a subtle little lie. Your adjectives often flavor things out of the real into the feeling realm. And so the noble mind, the samadhi mind, doesn't want anything. So we don't tell lies. The reality is good enough. Also, the samadhi mind doesn't have questions. It doesn't have doubts. Is it this? Is it that? Should I practice this way? Should I do that? What do I do about boredom? I don't like boredom, but I don't know that I don't like boredom. All of that is an ordinary mind. The samadhi mind is, I got it. Now, how deep into, I've got it, can you go?
That was what I was curious about when I was talking to one of the ajahns about, is it these different words? I can't fully remember, like upacharya samadhi or apadana samadhi, like there's different
Upadana.
words.
Okay, upadana has to do with the word dana, or giving, or having the feeling of generosity, having a feeling of, in
But I
fact,
meant,
being really wealthy. It's sort of like, imagine a bucket, an old cast iron or steel bucket, a pot, maybe a bowl, something like that, that's sitting under a water faucet that drips. Now, if you take a bucket out of the sun and put it under the water and it's dripping, for a while you won't get any water at all, because the water evaporates because the bucket's hot. But after the bucket cools down a bit, now the drops of water will start to accumulate. Okay? And as the bucket begins to fill up, we have various words for that. But the ordinary bucket is hot when it's put under the dripping faucet. So what is the dripping faucet? Would be cool thoughts. And when the bucket gets all the way full and then starts to overflow, that would be what we have as being able to give it out, feeling wealthy, feeling full, feeling rich. Your video went away. There you go. Now you're back again. All right. So that would be the upadana samadhi, is when the mind is overflowing with wealth, with goodness.
okay. Yeah. I was just wondering where these words came from, because I never heard
All
of
of the
those words.
Buddha's words were ordinary language of the Pali that the people used, and he spoke the language of the people. But now that, let us say that the teaching of the Buddha has been enshrined into the Pali language, But the Pali language is not Thai. In fact, the Thai language is much closer to Pali than English. And so we have to describe what the word means. So overflowing with a unified mind would be Upadana Samadhi.
Okay.
And a lot of Westerners use all of these Pali words without really understanding what they're talking about. And the Thais have a whole lot of trouble putting what their understanding of it is into English.
Yeah, I can imagine. I can imagine. The translation stuff seems a little spiffy sometimes.
So that's what I see as the duty to the Dhamma, is for a good teacher to find out the kind of language that the Pali is actually, or not the language of the Pali, but rather what the actual language means, what's really there, and then being able to put that into English so that the students can understand it. For instance, talking about Buddha, Buddha is not actually that important, but what's important is when we give the student Buddha is that can he actually use that to settle his mind, get it cool, so it starts to build the wholesome. And pretty soon, the wholesome is so built up that it overflows.
Yeah.
Okay, wholesome thoughts. Can you keep your thoughts wholesome? And talking about boredom being brutal, it's not wholesome. But
You know, I
rather
said
saying,
that
oh,
super
wholesome.
unconsciously. I
Yeah,
guess I
that's
must dislike it.
wakey, wakey, wake up. Wake up to the fact that we don't like stuff. And that drives our behavior. It drives our lives, and we do it all ignorantly. Can you wake up to what's happening so that you have choices rather than being driven by your not liking?
All right. I think I've understood.
So when you get into not liking something, say, aha, I see that. Because aha, I see that is actually putting the mind in a state of liking that which you a moment ago didn't like. Like seeing that you don't like. Aha, I see it. Oh, I'm confused. I don't know what he's talking about. Oh, I'm glad I see that confusion.
Yeah. Okay.
All right. So go give your cell phone back and sit down and start watching that you don't like it.
Yeah. I think I give it back in the afternoon, and then it's gone maybe for another. Well, I can ask for pretty much any time I want. I just don't have really much of a use right now until I need to get the visa stuff sorted out.
Excellent.
Anyways, yeah.
So you can sit down now and start liking the moment. Everything is okay. Not a worry in the world.
All right, okay.
When I see that boredom, there it is again. Yeah, I know boredom, my old friend. Hello, darkness, my old friend. Hello, boredom, my old friend.
Okay. I think we're cool.
I think we're cool.
Now,
Good. Now you can start building up that wholesome now that you've gotten cool. Your Dhamma doesn't evaporate in the heat of the mind.
All right, I'll let you know what's up soon anyway. I don't know when, but soon.
That's okay. We'll see you.
All right, we'll see you. Thank you, Dhammarato. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.